David Seymour talking to Chris Lynch about why RNZ hates him, quote unquote. Why do they hate you? And I just wanted to show this a little bit because the number of lies that come out in this about RNZ, and I'll show them to you, from the deputy, we won't even say minister anymore, from the deputy prime minister, is shocking. Let me put it out there before we get going. RNZ should not have to or need to check their numbers. They are a public broadcaster, and if you're going to work the public broadcasting system as a clickbait entity needing to get listeners, then it's not a public broadcaster. A public broadcaster should be playing by choice and actually by direction small insignificant things that only are tailored to a small sector of society. Their absolute direction should be about providing back to New Zealand the face that represents New Zealand and not worry about what the ratings are. So I think RNZ's made a mistake with getting involved, and always have, because they shouldn't. They should be having small audience niche ideas, which basically means, because if you're going to go for numbers, then you're never going to say, hey, let's have that niche show on. That's not going to draw numbers, but it's an important voice to hear in community. So I couldn't give a crap about RNZ's numbers. But of course, in this conversation, what we're about to hear is they've just released some of their latest numbers and they're terrible. Now, because they're terrible, because that means they're failing. It's like, well, if you're a niche company providing a very narrow service to a very small number of people, but that was your niche, just because you're small, it doesn't mean you fail. It means you're providing a niche result to a niche audience. Public broadcasting should be like that. Absolutely should be like that. Let's have a listen.
Why does RNZ hate you and the ACT Party?
Well, some of them don't. Actually, I have a good relationship with the gallery. Morning Report, they've got their own problems, and just look at their ratings in freefall, have been for years. I think they've recently gone a bit nuts over the school lunches. They did about 100 stories, and yet, now the problems are all solved. The scheme is being...
You might have missed what he just said. Apparently school lunches are solved. So keep an eye on that one, because he's just said now that it's solved. We'll see.
Enjoyed by the students, saving 50% off the cost to the taxpayer, $130 million saving this year, $170 million next year. But I think part of the problem is Radio New Zealand doesn't like reporting anything positive. So, because we've got a good news story now, we're off their radar.
Radio New Zealand ratings have dropped significantly. Its funding has been cut, and ACT has been celebrating its decline, I see on Twitter. Why?
That's a good question.
Well, it's pretty simple. Everyone else in the media has had to downsize, become more efficient, far more...
Everyone else in the public media is what should be compared to, right? They're not a commercial radio station. Their mandate shouldn't be to get the most ears possible. Their mandate should be telling New Zealand stories. That's why I had the big spiel at the front about their numbers shouldn't matter.
Pretty simple. Everyone else in the media has had to downsize, become more efficient, file more stories per day, and really think hard about how they satisfy their audience. In the last 5 years, RNZ's gone from 280 full-time equivalents to 316. So if you do the maths on that, they've actually had about a 12.5% increase in staff. Don't quote me on that maths, but it's around about that. They're living in la-la land. And I think a bit of pressure to actually do good journalism, satisfy the audience, might be good, and hopefully the rest of the organisation can become as professional as their press gallery team.
What I've noticed that RNZ does shut down comments on their social media pages on stories about Te Pāti Māori and Jacinda Ardern, but
look, I don't know whether I agree or disagree with that policy overall, but I wonder why. Because RNZ doesn't want a bunch of tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists blasting the C word at a former prime minister all over their sites, or a bunch of racists on the other one. Yeah, that's why they should just let racism flow. We don't block any messages through to us. Sometimes YouTube does, but we never actively do it. But it's like I said, I don't know if I'd be turning them off, but you can understand why. You can understand why.
Is he going to mention the Herald shutting down comments on their stories?
Doubt it very, very much. Doubt it. But we'll keep going.
Okay. Throws the gates wide open when it comes to the current government under fire. Therefore, is RNZ actually serving the public, or is it protecting its ideological allies?
Well, I hadn't noticed that trend in their comment moderation, and they may have their own reason for doing that. But look, ultimately, they have a real problem that their ratings and their trust are in freefall. They can point out that.
And why is that, Mr. Seymour? Why is media around the world trust in freefall? Because, I mean, if you're having this conversation, honestly, you'd say it's one of two reasons, either because they're untrustworthy or because a group of people have painted a narrative that they're untrustworthy when they're not. I would submit option 2 to you, Mr. Seymour. And we saw it starting with Trump, and we've seen it gone through the rest of the world, especially because groups like ACT or New Zealand First have used that model to basically be able to go, they can't criticize us because they're woke. They can't criticize us because you can't trust media. You know, and that's really all it is a sector of society has gone, they've laid enough bullshit foundation that these places being untrustworthy, so they can now go, well, you can't trust them. You know, it's exactly what they've done. I mean, I would challenge any politician or any group that said that not to go to the public and say, who do you trust? But go to the articles and go to the actual media outlets and test what they're saying, whether it's trustworthy or not. That would be a piece of research worth doing, because people can be idiots, people can be fooled, people can be wrong. If you actually check the media outlets and check if their stories are accurate or inaccurate, that would be the way to figure it out. But who's done that? Like no one, Chewie? Maybe a couple of people in America?
I mean, this is just David Seymour taking an axe to another publicly funded institution.
Yeah.
Like to weaken it, to raise questions about its integrity, to raise questions about its value to the country. The Radio New Zealand mandate is not a commercial mandate. It never has been. It's been
and it shouldn't be.
Benefit of all New Zealanders.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's to tell New Zealand stories. And that's it. And it's amazing what frees up when you're not worried about some sort of commercial, you know, aspiration, clicks and that sort of thing. Personally, I think Radio New Zealand shouldn't have comment sections. I think all news stories shouldn't have comment sections. You know, when we had newspapers, and
what
you
are they?
could read a story and
What's a newspaper?
format your own decision without having the hand-scrawled ramblings of crazy people underneath every story. God, they were simple times. But this is the thing, like Radio New Zealand's mandate far exceeds whatever we spend on it. There's amazing documentary and archival stuff that Radio New Zealand has done. They have a role to play in a national emergency. All of these sort of things that you might sort of go to a commercial operation, hey, you've got to do some of the heavy lifting on this as well. But it's always going to be a secondary thing. But who benefits if Radio New Zealand goes away? Who benefits if we have less media investigating politicians or corporations, business operations, things going on outside of your area of perception? Who benefits? Well, certainly some of the shady fucks that want to fund ACT. So this is greeted by my immediate suspicion